Gemara, we're beginning now the fourth pedic of Bava Basra Daf. And now we're going to talk about sales. When a person sells a property, what's included in the sale? I mean, in the world today, you sell a house, are the drapes, the curtains, and all of these ancillary products included in the sale, or do you have to actually itemize it? So first we talk about additions to the house, like a granny flat, a little bit of a shed, these kind of things. Are they automatically included in the sale, or do we say that you have to itemize it, and if you don't, they're not included in the sale? Especially now, they have rental properties now. When you want to look at a house to buy, they get these companies who come in and they populate the house with beautiful furniture, and it looks like a mansion, a palatial home. And then when you finally buy the house, you get nothing, just bare walls. And so what happens? And even the garden, they put these fake plants, or they put in plants that little pots, and then they're all taken away. So, if somebody sells a house, the yitzia is not included in the house. What exactly is the yitzia? We'll see in the Gemara in a minute. No, but something that is similar to a house, but it's not actually the house itself. We'll see in the Gemara what the yitzia is. Even though it opens to the house, doesn't automatically mean that it's included in the house. If you have a room in the back of the house, and this room is purely for like a closet or like a shed attached to the back of the house with an entrance to the house, it's purely for warehousing, storing whatever it is you store there, is not automatically included in the house. You have to highlight that it will be included, otherwise take it away. The lawyers will keep it for themselves, the seller. The lawyers hagag, nor the roof. In those days, the roofs used to be used. The roof, if the roof is a roof that's being used, when I sell you the house, doesn't automatically mean I'm selling you the roof. Bisman, when the roof is independently chashuv. When is it independently chashuv? Bisman sheyesh le'maka gavoya asar tvachim. If it has a fence around it, 10 tvachim, which proves that they use it, and because the din is you have to put a mica, and therefore it's a chashuv enough that if you don't include that in the sale, it's not part of the sale. Rabbi Yehuda, a roof to be chashuv, you don't even need a mica 10 tvachim. In yesh le'tzuras pesach, if there's mamash a door, not just a little hole in the ceiling you climb to the roof, but there's a proper door to go from the downstairs up to the roof. Even though that it's not 10 tvachim high, if there's a roof, a sort of proper door, no matter how small it is, it seems that it's much more chashuv than just you will use it sometimes, and therefore it's independently chashuv, and it's not automatically included in the sale unless you highlight I'm selling you the house, including the roof. Otherwise, the roof has its own chshivus. 100%. Now, if let's say the roof is not included, so how does the guy get up to the roof because he sold him the house? That's another parsha we'll talk about later. Like you keep the boiler for yourself, but it's right in the middle of your yard. Do I have to buy then the rights to get to the boiler or not? That's the machlekes the meicher ba'ayin yafa meicher or not. Is the next mishnah. 10 tvachim. A mic has to be 10 tvachim high. There's no mic here because for whatever reason, no mic here. If it's less than 4 amos, we'll see later. If it's less than 4 amos wide, or there's no reason for mic still, or you didn't do it. You're supposed to put a mic, but you didn't. Maybe you don't use it that often. Oh, but the door is, but if you don't hold it, the door proves that it's chashuv. Second one, my yitzia. You said if you sell a house, the yitzia is not included. What's a yitzia? Targimel, here they interpret yitzia is an afsa. What's an afsa? So according to the Rashbam, an afsa is basically another room, like a granny flat. It's a regular room that's on the same level as the house, but it's attached to the house. A lot of the Shem don't like it. Because remember, we had just yesterday the Gemara, the word afsa, and over there was talking about an upstairs. So they learned that afsa means actually another a room that's upstairs. Because they argue that if it's mamish in the same level of the house, and it's similar purpose of the house, maybe it should be included in the sale. It's part of the house. Especially the entrance to there is from the house. So they learn that it's talking about upstairs. And Rabbi Yosef says, you know what it is? Bitcha Chalil. It's like a foyer, a veranda. It's a room, but it's full of windows. So you don't really live there because it's full of windows, but it's part of the house in a way. So it's not automatically sold with the house because you don't really live there. It's more used for keeping things there. Sorry? Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. But because it's full of windows, you can't sleep there. You can't really do those kind of things. Yeah. Now, says the Gemara, what's the machlek is Lamando? The one says that an afsa, which is mamish similar to a house, and yet it's not included in the sale. Then Mando is that you don't, that's not included. And the coast came barka, some say barka, some say barka, Khalila, full of holes. Lame is davna. It's not used as a living quarter, so surely it's not part of the sale. Well, the Mando, the one who says that Barka Khalila, that one who says the Mishnah talking about Khalila, Avsam is Davna, but Avsam is sold. But why? Because it's mamish like part of the house, it's like a granny flat. It's similar to the house, and therefore it's included in the house. Tanya Rabbi Yisrael said that we use the word here. We're in Daf Samach Aleph Amid Aleph, and we just started the Gemara here that if somebody sells a house, what's included? So far we learned that a Yitzia is not included, and we had an argument if a Yitzia means just another room extending from the house, like a granny flat outside of the house, but it's used like a house. And that's what the Mishnah means. It's not automatically included in the sale unless you specify that. And according to another opinion, we're talking about a veranda which is full of windows, and even though it's there to sit there and sometimes to cool down because you have fresh air coming through the windows, or for beauty, but nevertheless, it's not really it's something you don't live there, so it's a bit different than house, and that's not included. So now Rabbi Yosef says the word Yitzia, which is what the word that we're talking about, is used as a room, and we have three different names. Sholish, Shemus, Yeshloi. It has actually three names to describe that kind of room. Either it's a Yitzia, even though Rabbi Yosef is the one who said it's this veranda full of windows, but he says that generally a room can be called a Yitzia, it can be called Tzela, and it can be called Ta. Three different names, and I'll prove it to you from different psukim. We're talking about the same thing, and yet it has three different names. In the Beis HaMikdash, you had a number of stories, and you had on each floor, not on the eastern side, the entrance of the Beis HaMikdash, but on the two other sides, at the back, you had rooms, chambers. And those chambers sometimes are called Tzela, sometimes they're called Yitzia, and sometimes they're called Ta. So we see that these rooms, the box rooms, the small rooms, are, how did it work exactly? So we know the wall of the Beis HaMikdash was 6 amos wide. But on the very bottom floor, we decided to add another amma to it, so the wall was actually 7. This is how most are trying to learn. The wall was actually, they didn't learn 6.5, but most of them was 7 ammas wide, and the room therefore was only that cubicle was only 6. It was only 5 ammas square. Not everyone agrees it was square either, but most of it was square. 5 ammas square, and the wall was 7. Why was the wall 7 when the wall was supposed to be 6? Because the next story up, they had more rooms. They didn't want to put beams and make holes in the wall. So what they did was, there they made the wall of the Beis HaMikdash only 6 amos wide. So there's an amma spare, and that's where they placed the beams of the beneath the rooms upstairs. They had the beams on the extra amma of the wall, and so therefore the cubicles 1 floor up were 6 amos wide. Then the third story, the wall was only 5 amos wide, because again, the same story with the beam. They didn't want to pierce holes in the wall to place the beams in there. So they made it only 5 amos wide. So the beams on the third floor were able to be there. And those rooms were 7 amos wide, because all the rooms ended in the same place. If you're standing inside the Beis HaMikdash, all the floors looked like they were ending in the same place. So the bottom one was 5 amos wide each room. The second floor was 6 amos, and the third floor was 7 amos. The wall, the bottom one was 5 amos, it was 7 amos wide, 6 amos wide, 5 amos wide. The front wall, according to most, was 6 amos. The entire depth, the entire width of the wall was 6 amos, because they had none of these, chambers. Okay, that's the story. So now the Gemara says this. The Chsiv, one pasuk says, "Hayitzia tachtaina chomesh ba'ama." The very bottom floor, the yitzia. What is yitzia? These rooms were 5 amos. They were 5 amos wide. So do we see clearly? It's called yitzia. These rooms. Tzela. How do I know that these rooms are called tzela as well? The Chsiv, because it says the pasuk b'hatzloyis, tzala el tzala, that these rooms were tzala el tzala, shalosh v'shloishim pa'amim. There were a total of 33 of these rooms, because each floor had 11. 5 and 5 of them on the back by my side. 5 and 5 on the back by my side. So you had 3 stories. So it is 33. So we see it's called tzala. And ta, where do you find the word ta? Because it says v'hata kana echad oirich. The ta was the length of one kana, which is 6 amos. The kana echad roichiv, and was width of 6 amos, and that's the middle floor. the middle floor, the rooms were 6 amas wide. And then it says it will bein hatoyim chamash amas, and amongst the toyim were 5 amas, and that was the bottom floor. The ground floor was 5 amas. So we see clearly from here what that toyim was describing the same thing that we talked about Tzalo, the same thing we talked about Yitzia. Then the Gemara said, if you want, I can bring it right from a brisa. It says in this brisa that the wall of the Heichel Sheish was 6 amas wide. The Hator Sheish, on that floor where the wall was 6 amas thick, then the rooms were 6 amas by 6 amas. And Kaisel had a Tor Chomish. And then lower down, the Kaisel of the Tor was 5 amas, and the room there was obviously bigger, was 7 amas. So we're talking about the same things. Traces is trouble. But you brought these psukim, and now you bring the boy say marai from a brisa. You already have a rai from the pasuk. In fact, we have it a number of times. Yehuda boy lekra. What do you tell me another? Bring me a brisa. Taisa wants to say there's nothing wrong with bringing a brisa. There, the problem is you say ba'oid. Here it doesn't say ba'oid. I'll bring you further rai. It just happens to be boy saying. The problem is when you bring a pasuk and they say ba'oid. Now to strengthen that, what do you have to strengthen a pasuk? Mazutra says, Mazutra says, when do we say that this Yitzia is choshev only if there is 4 amas by 4 amas? Because when it comes to laws of mezuzah, a bayis is not considered a house unless it is 4 amas. So the same thing over here. That in order to say that it's independent from the house, it's not included in the sale. This yitzia, whatever it is, according to Rabbi Yosef or according to the Gemara, it has to have the dimension of 4 amas by 4 amas to be independently chashiv. According to you, the amad you say that what? That unless it's 4 amas wide, but if it's less than 4 amas, it becomes ancillary to the house and automatically included in the sale. So tell me, pshat in the next Mishnah after Gabi Boyd, we're going to learn later on by Boyd that now we learned loy es haboy. When you sell a house, and let's say in your courtyard you have a cistern, you have a well, and you have different things. Are they included in the sale of the house? So it says that when the courtyard says loy es haboy, the boy is not included, but loy es hadus, and nor the dus cistern is included. Even if you added the words, I'm selling you the house and the ear rights and all the way down to the depths, the lower depths, but that's all to do with things that are negated to the house, that are relevant to the house, that pertain to the house. The boy is not relevant to the house. It's a separate, independent thing. Not every house is a boy. You have a swimming pool. And maybe the swimming pool is not included either. Not every house has to have a swimming pool. It's not part of the house unless you include that in the sale. We'll talk about later. So according to you, you need 4 amas. Which boy is 4 amas wide? No boy. A cistern in a person's backyard. You have a water tank. It's not 4 amas is very, very big. You don't have that. And nowhere does it say that the only time that this cistern is not included, it's 4 amas wide. So he says, what do you compare? Over there, the use of the boy has a totally different use than the use of the house. It's not buckled to the house, it's totally independent of the house. So who cares if it's 4 amas wide, 2 amas wide? The reason why it's not part of the sale is because the house doesn't need a boy. So if you don't specify it, why would it be included? The problem here is here when we're talking about Yitzia is a place that you reside in, or you put your things in the house, and it's like part of the house. But yet it's not really part of the house. It's just like it's next to the house. So we say if it's chashuv enough to be independent, we get offended. If it's not, it's ancillary to the house. Big machlekes are shayim then. So what about the next case in the Mishnah? It's a cheder. Cheder is even more similar to a house, right? Say cheder is another rule, like a granny flat. Do you also say it has to be 4 amas or not? Because the murder first starts off saying 4 amas, less than 4 amas, not chashuv is part of it. Or do we say because over there, even though the Bayitzia, the Tashmish is similar to the house, it's not exactly similar to the house. Mashenkin, a ched is mamish, another room. It's another room. It's like a room, exactly like a house. So maybe over there, because it's exactly like the house, if you have to spell it out, if it's less than 4 amas, it's not included or not. Always a ched is always chashuv. It is always considered chashuv, even less than 4 amas. Think about it further. The we'll talk about it right now what a cheder is. If you tell me Yitzia is not included, even though it's not so chashuv, it seems that the cheder there, we're calling it a granny flat, The way someone should learn is it was also used to store things for the house. It was used, look at the last, the Rashbam at the bottom of the page. It's made there to mind your, I don't know, your Pesach dishes and all those kind of things. So now we're saying that cheder, I call it a granny flat because it's like a regular room, but it goes through your house, but actually it wasn't used for that. It was used for storage. So Madas a Yitzia, which is like, even if you learn it's a veranda, you still sit there and still, you live there like partially like a house. And yet you say it's not included, so surely a cheder is not included. Hasha Yitzia Medav cheder mebayich. We needed the afagav the meitzele mitzroy abroi. That is interesting. We'll have a concept that sometimes when the boundaries are not so clear, you'll use boundaries on the star which are clearer, even though it includes items in those outer boundaries that are not really part of the sale. But at least it gives you a much better idea of what you're getting. If I use other boundaries which are not clear, we'll see later, what am I going to use? A tree? I mean, I can't use anything. So therefore, I sometimes broaden the boundaries, even though I don't mean to include everything in it. And the chiddush by cheder is, even though it's included in the broader boundaries that I put in there, it's not included in the sale. Even though I included that as I included that. I said, that's the outer boundary. Why? What did Nachman say? Somebody sells a house with friend. For example, a guy has a apartment building, 10 apartments there, all on the same level. He said, I'm selling you an apartment, but what he uses as a boundary is the entire building. Then he's mitzarim hichelai. Since I said I'm selling you an apartment, I'm only selling one apartment. But mitzarim hichelai, there's a concept where I'm broadening the boundaries because that's clear where this apartment is. It can be anywhere in the world. I'm telling you, it's in these boundaries is apartment. So, and that doesn't mean I sold you the whole building. I just sold you one particular apartment. So just because I use the boundary doesn't mean anything. The concept I just use it because that's clear, delineated where that apartment is. Let's analyze the case of the further. Let's say that is a place where an apartment is called an apartment and a building is called a building. Like a bayis is a bayis and a bida is a mansion, is a bida. So then pshita, bayis overlay, bida is overlay. Who cares what boundary you gave? If I clearly wrote in the contract, stipulated, I'm selling you an apartment. Then of course you sold them only an apartment. Just because I gave you the boundaries of a building, you don't get the building. I told you I'm selling an apartment. What's the chiddush? No, boss, you're telling me it's in a place the bida namikar bayis that people use the word apartment for a building. No, and he gave. So if people call an apartment a building, and he gave him the boundary of the building, then why Taka doesn't he acquire an entire building? The coolest of them, why Taka did he say he only has one apartment? And why go that way when people call an apartment a building, and you gave the boundaries of the whole building? Now, all those shayim ask, we'll have a machlekes gemara later, a concept called dami ma'idin. Why don't we just look and see the money? But actually, we'll see later about Tzembet Boker and all that, what he bought. But there, the machlekes between Rabban and Abuda, and the halacha Rabban that we don't believe in the concept of money. Maybe it's Michael you. Maybe he's prepared to give you such a heavy discount, or you're prepared to pay so much more money. So, the Rabban the whole domain. Others want to say that Rashbam and others saying ain't oinol the kakois. We learned before in Metzia that there's no cheating by karka because real estate will always eventually get to that price. So there ain't another kakois. And therefore you can't say, let's look how much money he paid. Even if he overpaid, there's no such thing as overpaying. Others disagree because the main Tam Shittu says that there's a 50% cap. The difference between karka and everything else is say a 16.5%. But when it comes to karka, we can go to 50%, like almost double. But that's it. There is a cap. And here it seems to be open-ended. Apartment building will cost more than 50% more. If you have 6 apartments there, than one apartment. Others say, again, because he's going in Chatchila and he's willing to offer this amount, it's different than after the event. We'll say, no, you can't come now back with tiners because it'll get to that price. Here, the Chatchila negotiating a price. Don't understand. This is what he's willing to pay. It doesn't come into the laws of maybe by karka. Anyway, the Gemara continues. Like talking about the same way we're looking more later on as well. The Ruba Karla the Bayis, the Bida. The Raiv says we had something about Hamaniach. But both people call a house and a Bida. But the economic libida correlate bias. They have a miyut that refer to it as both. Separate, and we know there's a general rule by Mammon. We follow Shmuel and Ein Mammon Acharet. So the fact that the Rave call it a bida is not good enough when you have someone call it a bias. Sorry. Most people call a bias a bida, but you have a miyut that call a bias a bida. So I would have thought, since Ein Hochem Mammon Acharet, and you have a star, which clearly says that he sold in the building, the apartment building, so they call him a bida. So maybe he should get the bida. Ma'otei Makula Zavalei, Kamashla Midah, and the Kamashla no. And why not? Why talking that? You have a star that says the building, a bida, and some people who say the miyut to say that. So why talking that? Because he should have written he had to add this clause. And if the vendor is selling a building, since there's some people, most people call it a apartment. Only some people call it bida. The landlord should have wrote, or the vendor should have written, and I'm leaving nothing for myself. Because it didn't write, I'm leaving nothing for myself, that indicates that he's leaving something for himself. So when you sold the building, you meant the apartment. Like the Meray people, so you need a Ray plus this. For like cost of Shema Menosh Yidishai, he's leaving something for himself. And V'Omar Rabbi Nachman, the same thing, the same din we just said here, he said it replicates the din by a field. I have a large open, fields. They all belong to me, and I'm selling you only one of them. And how do you mark this field? How do you write the boundaries of a field? Nobody knows exactly which. But you have 6 fields there. It looks like one massive field. A savanna is one big area. How do we know? So how do we know what it is? So he says it. The only recognizable lines are the outer perimeter of the entire Bika, the entire valley, entire plateau. Is mitzarim hirchalei. They will also apply the rule that he just broadened the mitzarim and he only sold it a sada. People call a sada, and a bika when it's a whole big expansive land is called a bika. No pshita. Sada he only sold a sada. Well, the beginning call a sada. You know what? Everybody call a bika can be called a sada, and you outlined the perimeters of that sada. You use the entire bika. No, so kula zavalei didn't he sell the entire lot? We're talking about the Ika de Sada Karla Sada, Bika. Now, some people call a Sada, and most people, or here it says Ika before he said the Rav. Most people call a Sada, and some people call a Bika, but the Ika Nami, those, the Bika Karla Sada. It's loose. Some people call this way, some people that way. So nowadays, well, it's clear that he's from those people that call a sada bika. A bika, they call it a sada, even though he wrote in the shtar, I'm selling you a sada. But since you gave the description of the perimeter of the perimeter, and the perimeter is an entire bika, Kamashalon. And why taka? What? That all you sold them was a sada. I left nothing for myself. He didn't write that shema. Shiyude shayir. So the question is, why do you have to tell the same thing? Basically, the principle is the same. The principle between the bika and the bias and the bira is exactly the same. Why do you have to repeat it? I'm not going to repeat it. The ashwin the bias. If we own to the house, I was saying mishum the hot tashmish to lechud, v'hot tashmish lechud. Each apartment is separate from the next apartment. So therefore, we'll say that even though mitzadim hirchavlai, but really I'm just telling you a bias. I said a bias. I meant the bias. However. And an apartment building is different than a house. A house is just for you, one family. An apartment building is a whole different story. So I'll say, I have a bika. It's one large sada. What is a bika? The same thing as a sada, but instead of ending over here, it's much larger. Is the kula chada tashmishti? It's all one tashmish. And what are you can do in the next sada is actually here. And you can have one sada and do this, get cows and plow the entire sada. It's one big area. Same thing. So it makes sense. And you use the perimeter of the entire bika, then maybe that's what it's included. If you told me bika if you told me only bika, I would say no, he had no breda. How are you going to give the description of one sada? They all look the same. How in the world? Nobody knows. If I give description north, south, east, west, and I do something there that's not clear, nobody knows what it is. So therefore, I just say, you know what? The sada that's in this area here, which I'll show you later, point out to you later. But a house is so easy. It's the apartment on the right. Simple. You walk through the vestibule and the part on the right, part upstairs. But you didn't use it. Well, it's easy to write the boundaries, and you didn't. Instead, you wrote the outer boundary, the extreme boundaries, the outer extremities. Then maybe close overlay, maybe tack this up the entire building. You need it. Says Gemara, Kemanazla. According to who does it follow? Hodamar Mori. That Mori said, Berei the Bashmul, the son of the daughter of Shmuel. Every time it says that the son of, remember we learned Shmuel's daughter had Ksubas. It's like a paid. Shmuel's daughters were kidnapped, taken captive, and they were very, very smart. So they came into the shul and they said, we were captive, so therefore they were set free and they were allowed. But one of them was actually one of the goyim had relations with her, and she fell pregnant, and that guy became a guyer, and had a son called Amari. So it was a Hayrasa Shalei Begushav. This is Amari, the son of the daughter of Shmuel. So his mother was a Yid, and so on. Mashmei Abaye. If you ever sell something to your friend, part of the lotion of the contract should be it's to add I left nothing for myself. This clears. Then there's no dispute. What's included, not included. I left nothing other than what I wrote there. A guy said to his friend, I am going to sell you the land of Rabbi Chia. This person bought from Rabbi Chia, and now he said, I'm going to sell you the land. The problem is, he had two properties from Rabbi Chia. Both of these lands were called Rabbi Chia, but he said in singular lashon, I'm going to sell you the land of Rabbi Chia. So what happens here? Only one land, one of the properties, but he actually bought two. He had two properties that were called Vechia because he bought it both from Vechia. Here it's clear. He said, I'm telling you in singular form. So he only sold him one in singular form. And which one? As we know, so he gets the field that's worth less. The if he stamped home Arata. I'm telling you the properties of Rav Chia without specifying how many. So if you had 3, 4, 5, 6, he only gets 2. Like Rabbi Shtar, he writes, I lend you Zuzim or Dinarim, it's always 2 if you don't write a number down. The call Arata. He says all the properties of Rav Chia, or whatever it is, call Arata. Then he sells him every single field that he has, but does not include tree. It does not include bustani, which are, and the Rambam holds gardens. Other hold that it's orchards growing fruits, and upardisi and orchards, which sometimes we say there's a vineyard, sometimes we say it's pomegranate. There's orchards. Rashi here says, Rambam says here it's vineyards. That's not included. That's not a field. We don't call them a field. Arata is a land field that you can grow grains and other things, but something that's already established a vineyard is not included. If you use the word zira, then I feel the big boost to the padisi, everything, even that, orchards and gardens, they're all included. Levad, but what's not included is bote, a house. A house is definitely not included in the word zira, like field or whatever, and va'avodim. And avodim are compared to karkois, even though those who argue avodim like nachla, they argue like karka, not like karka. But here in this particular kind of sale, it's not included. You highlight them or you specify them independently. The Yamal, if he said to him, Nichsa, if he said to him, all my assets, then I feel it bote va'avodim, then all that are included. So quickly, we're talking about boundaries. What about meitzalei meitzerech? Don't get scared from all these pictures. Meitzalei meitzer echad aruch. What happens? He gave let's say there's north, south, east, and west. So he said on the south, he delineated the entire length of the south. Umeitzer echad kotzer, and then the north, he only delineated a half of the boundary. So what's the sale here? So on one side he gave the entire, and the other side he did half. What about the other two sides, east and west? Did he include them as well? So many Rishonim hold that you have to say included the east. He said the whole east, the whole west, the whole south, but north they only nominated a boundary, which is these rocks, which only go halfway. And we'll see later. Yeah, only goes halfway, and then the shaila is what happens, how much of the land he sold. Because if he only would have said the top line and the bottom line, then he only gets a telemech. He only gets one row on the bottom, parallel to the bottom, and one row on the top, parallel to the top. That's what many Rishonim hold. So, he already wrote all the other three boundaries of full boundaries. Why the top boundary? You only write part of the boundary. Therefore, it's deliberate, and you only get that half. He included a wider area. The concept of Nachman said before. Sometimes it's easier to whatever the clear boundaries. That's what you meant. We had this number of times in the Shas would have Kanavasi challenging Larav, but Yikne Keneged Rosh Toy, make a diagonal. No, if he was so specific, the bottom on the south side he went entire length, on the north side he only did half. And maybe he meant was take a diagonal line from the end of the top half and go all the way down to the bottom to the corner, and that's what he gets. Like the picture you see over here. On the second picture on the bottom, you see there's a line. That's what you should get. Shasik Rav was quiet. But Rav is Moide. Now, if you really Gemara the Pasha, it sounds like Chassidus. It talks about how a person's mind, Chochmah, is higher than Binah. The Kud of Chochmah, sometimes you cannot even articulate, you cannot even explain to yourself. But this is your gut feeling. This is the higher level of Chochmah that your gut tells you that this is how it is. And we bring it out from Marabeya, but it's the same thing over here. Where Rabbi Amir Abasi asked Rav a question, and Shasik Rav, when he was quiet, he couldn't explain it in words, couldn't give him a seichel, but in his etzem, there he felt that that's how it is. But interesting, most of Shainim learned here, as we've seen him in, that Hashbam says, when he made it up, he was made because he changed his mind. So Hashbam says, koidim before they asked him the question. In other words, because Hashbam says, once he asked him the question, he relented, he acquiesced, he agreed with Rav Asi and Rav Kahana. So Rav. And Rav is Moide. Hey, and as Tesis in the Rosh and others Shem explained, Rav Kahana and Rav Asi were equals to Rav. So Rav couldn't ignore them. When Rabba, for example, ignores Abaya, and they bring cases where Rabba didn't change his mind. Abaya is a Talmud. You don't want to waste his time talking. Abaya will never let go. So, okay, you're happy, you ask a question, because he'll answer and he'll ask him another question. Abaya never finishes. So Rabba is a Talmud. But Rav had no right to ignore Rav Asi and Rav Ami because they were equals, Talmud Chaver. So they should have answered him. That's what Tesis says. Other than Shane, the Rambam and others who do pass the Rav, because it says, because even though Rav couldn't answer in words, he felt that's the halacha. And that's why Gemara says Moed Rav, as if he still maintains that psak. And Rav is Moed Heichad in the following case, where you can see it's deliberate that he did not just miss out. For example, there were 4 properties there. Two up in top north and 2 in the bottom. So let's say Reuben and Shimon. You look at the picture in the next one. Reuben and Shimon are on top, right? And Levi Yehuda, and you have Levi and Yehuda on the bottom. Now, so it's easy now to write down. You can write the north is Reuben and Shimon, the south is Levi and Yehuda. Clear. But if you went out of your way, you wrote the north, the boundary is Reuben and Shimon's field, and the south, the boundary is Yehuda's field. You left out Levi. That seems to be deliberate because it's so easy just to say is Reuben Keneged Levi. You could have said Reuben opposite Levi and Shimon Keneged Yehuda, but like Kosele, and he omitted it. Shema Mino Keneged Rosh Torah Damalei. He meant that the Rosh Torah literally means the head of a cow. The head of a cow is wider than the animal, and then you work your way down. But Torah doesn't mean a row. Rosh Torah is that you're going down on an angle. He meant deliberately an angle. Here's no mitzorim hirchavlo. He meant exactly the full top and half of the bottom. So you make a diagonal. So we'll stop over here, and we'll continue tomorrow with Hashem.